Hi, people. It's been a while since I made a video, and I kind of felt the need to make one just to make one, but I also felt the need to talk about. I am not, this is not all that is to it. I did actually have something that was on my mind, and I think one of the reasons why wasn't making videos was because I was just going through a very kind of uh, tumultuous time, and just a bunch of indecision because I recently hit the 1 year mark on HRT. This was about a month ago. Let's see, September 20th was my 1 year point, and this is November 11th. So it's coming up on 13 months. Is that right? September, October. I skipped October. Sorry. Uh, 14 months. Coming up on 14 months. But right at the 1 year point, my approval from the VA. I get my HRT through the VA, but they have to send me to an outside endocrinologist to get tested and this sort of thing, and he actually sends them the prescription. So if he does not send them the prescription, then I can't get the hormones, and he can't send the prescription if he doesn't have approval from the VA that they're going to pay him for his work. So the approval ended after a year, and the VA had not set it up apparently so that he knew what to do. The doctor, the endocrinologist, knew what to do once my approval ended, and I'm asking him for a new prescription right around the 1 year mark of estrogen, because I just run out. And he's like, "You don't have approval from the VA." So I'm calling them up saying, "What's going on? Why don't I have approval?" They're like, "Your approval expired after a year." I'm like, I got that part. So, like, why has it not been renewed? What do I have to do? And it ended up in this, like, a month of me doing the VA's job for them, basically, and passing messages back and forth between the endocrinologist and the VA because the doctor didn't know what to do. Apparently, the VA had changed their system. The doctor's telling me I'm doing what I always do. The VA had changed their system, and they had not told him about it. Anyways, it took me about a month, a little bit over a month, to get my approval and then to get my prescription refilled. By then, I'd also run out of progesterone. So for a month, I was without estrogen, and then for like 2 weeks, I was out of progesterone. And what happened when I ran out was I really started to question whether I wanted to continue doing this or not. If that break had never occurred, I think I might have just gone on with it, just like without even thinking about it. But perhaps because it was also the 1 year point. Because when I started out doing this, uh, I wasn't sure that I wanted to do this or not. I wasn't sure if I needed it, and so that's kind of the topic of this video. That's the reason I'm making this video. Uh, but the way I did it was I said, well, I'll just commit for 6 months. I'll do it for at least 6 months. If I don't like it, or if I realize that I don't need it, then I'll just stop. And so 6 months passed, and I felt like I really didn't feel any kind of clearer as to, like, my identity, what it was that I needed to be happy, and these sorts of things. And so there was also kind of this, once that first 6 months passed, then also once I get to the 1 year point, then I didn't really do that intentionally, but I think just unconsciously, because I'd already set the 6 month goal. I think that's kind of why I was a little bit like, I need to reevaluate, see where I'm at, and these sorts of things. And so probably both, the fact that I could not get estrogen, and the fact that I was at the 1 year point, which was, just kind of a milestone, you might say, where I was kind of like, do I really want to go through with this? Do I really, or not to go through with it, but is this the direction for me to go? And I'll get to why I felt that way, but let me go back to the actual point of this video, or what I mean to talk about is that HRT as a way of exploring who I am and how I feel about that. Do I have any regrets about that? That sort of thing. So, yeah, like I said, I started this whole thing basically as a way of exploring, like, myself, my gender, uh, and that sort of thing. And so let me back up a little bit further and say that I don't know if you can imagine what it's like to grow up seeing yourself as a man or as a boy when you're a child. You grew up as a boy. At some point, you become a man. Maybe, I don't know. For me, I never really felt like I did, but that might have something to do with this. But I was miserable for almost my entire life. I mean, I I don't have like memories from my childhood where I'm like, God, I wish I could go back to those times, or life was so good when I was a kid, or anything like that. It was like from the get go, I felt like I was a homeless person, looking for my place in the world where I felt like I belonged, and that was partly why I was miserable. That was because I just felt like I just don't belong anywhere. It's like no matter where I'm at, I'm out of place. And so, year after year of just kind of being tortured and just feeling like a lot of that was, just self-hatred. It's like, God, I'm a piece of crap. It's like I can't, I don't fit in anywhere. I don't function properly in society. And there was a lot of, bashing myself for that and just being like, what is wrong with me? And these sorts of things. And of course, I had theories, because like I was pretty much abandoned by my mother. When I say pretty much, I mean she is still in my life, but we haven't talked we talk like once every 10 years, and it's been like that pretty much since I was a child. So, so things like that. I thought, well, it's because my mother dropped me. The way my friend puts it is, she dropped you like a sack of potatoes. So I almost see it more as like a piece of garbage. It's like you were some piece of garbage. I was some piece of garbage that she decided, I don't need you in my life. You were a bad decision, that sort of thing. So that was kind of my big kind of go-to thing, but it just didn't always. I felt like it didn't quite answer all my questions. So, yeah, what I was getting to was, I don't know if you can imagine what it's like to be someone who sees himself as a man around the age of 38, having lived basically just a miserable life, just being like, my life sucks. I don't really like myself. And then getting to be around the age of 38 and starting to think, I think the reason I've been unhappy all this time is because I'm actually a woman. I mean, when you already have a kind of inferiority complex, to think that is a little bit of a, I don't know if things could get any worse. It's like, but simultaneously, there's this spark of hope, right? It's like, oh, I finally found my problem, right? So there's that spark of hope. It's like, yes, I found my way out. I found my way out of this miserable life, or I think I have. But at the same time, it's like, oh my God, is this really it? Like, can I just, can't it just be my lack of confidence? That's my only problem. If I just go win, can't just that be my solution? My solution is I have to live as a woman, and not just a woman, but a trans woman. So, that was, I don't know if you can imagine what that's like. It was simultaneously dreadful and exciting, if that makes sense. Because the excitement was, I feel like I found my thing. But then the dread was just like, it's humiliating. right? Not only that, but it's just like I grew up thinking of trans as being like the bottom of the bottom. Like if you were a tranny, like you were like the social outcast, right? Nobody liked you if you were a tranny. But so the thing, of course, like I said, was I wasn't really sure. It kind of started out. Well, I shouldn't say it kind of started out. It started through a kind of a culmination of things, right? Like my sex life as a man was just pathetic. And I don't mean that I couldn't get laid. I mean that when I did get laid, it was just like something is not quite right here. I feel like I wanted something that I didn't get, and it didn't matter how many women I had sex with, it was always the same. And there was just this feeling of I wanted more from the relationship than I was getting. I wanted like you might call it a connection. And I felt like we weren't connecting because partly, apparently, it was something with this thing in my head of I have to be the man. I have to be a man. I don't necessarily mean be the man in the relationship. I don't have to wear the pants. That's not what I mean. But I have to be attractive as a man. I have to live up to this image, so to speak, which was already confusing for me because most of the men in my life that I had known didn't give me a good image to live up to. So I was kind of like, who is the man that not just how do I be a man, but how do I be the man that I feel like is not like these other men? How do I kind of balance these two things here, where I'm trying to find an image of a man that I can respect and have a happy relationship with a woman as, but still see myself as a man, if that makes sense. It's like, because if you're too nice, at some point you get to be, you're not a man anymore, almost, if that makes sense. I also described this once as, if a man becomes too beautiful, he endangers himself to becoming a woman, basically, or at least to being seen as a woman. I don't mean being confused for a woman, as in he passes as a woman, but that people will look at him and say he's not really a man. He's a woman, gender-wise. So, anyways, I feel like I got off track. I totally got off track. Sorry, folks. But yeah, so this was a culmination of things. That's where I was headed. It wasn't just like one day I was like, I think I'm a woman. It was more like problems with my sex life, even just like getting erections and things like that. Like I was often in these situations where I didn't feel comfortable with women, kind of thing, where I could have sex maybe after I'd established a connection with a woman or something like that, but if it was just a total stranger, I couldn't. And stuff like that. Being confused about gay sex because I'd had a few experiences with men, sexual experiences with men, but I felt similar in those where it was kind of like, well, that was enjoyable, but I still feel kind of like something's just not quite right. And then I would watch gay porn, thinking maybe I just need to get acclimated to this idea of gayness or whatever. Because I wasn't sure that I was straight, largely because of these relationships with women that I'd had, these sexual relationships, and it didn't arouse me. I would watch gay porn and think, well, that's kind of cool, but I feel like I need to see a woman in the picture to feel aroused. And because I was aroused, I feel sexually aroused by women. The only thing that really arouses me by a man is his penis. If I see a man with a large penis and it's erect, I think, ooh, that's nice. But anyways, so years and years and years of just kind of questioning, like, why does my life just seem not quite fit on this map that I've made of who I'm supposed to be? And it led me to think that I was possibly trans. Uh, and I do believe I've made a video. I don't want to go through. I really don't want to go through that whole thing because I have made a video. I believe it's called "How I Came to the Idea That I Was Trans," and but so what happened was once I started to seriously take that, or once I started to take that seriously, what I did was I just went and bought like a dress and makeup, and I bought a wig and I put it on, and when I saw myself, I felt like I had found the missing piece of the puzzle. Is what I felt like. I felt like I had found. What I felt like was I had found like what I was looking for. But like I said, I just wasn't all on board with it. It wasn't like I was like, I'm trans. Let's run with this. We're off to the races now. It was more like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Uh, but I would have experiences like that. So I did that like the first time I had that experience where it was like, ooh, I like this. I like what I see. I feel like I love what I see, and I certainly feel more attractive. Like that was one of my things living as a guy was I was a good looking man. People would tell me all the time how good looking I was. That, girls would be like, "You're so handsome." Even men would tell me that, and but I felt ugly. I felt unattractive. I felt like I didn't, people wouldn't like me if they saw what was inside of me and this sort of thing. And but once I started seeing myself as a woman, then I was like, yeah, I'm starting to feel more like I could probably be a porn star, you know. But then that really it started to make the picture a little bit clearer, but there were a lot of things that were still just not resolved. Like, do I need a vagina? It's kind of like if this is how my thinking went. It went about like this. Well, if wearing a wig and makeup and women's clothes makes me feel better about myself and feel more valuable and more attractive and more lovable, how much more so better would I feel if I took hormones, had breasts and a sexy woman's butt, or if I had a vagina, a man-made vagina. And that was a little bit out of bounds for me. I was like, I really don't like the idea of needing to have a vagina, especially a fake one, to be happy. If there were some way to maybe alter my DNA where, a doctor could send in a little robot somewhere into my bloodstream and somehow alter my DNA where my penis transformed into a real vagina, that would be slightly different. I don't really like the idea of just having this hole in my flesh, where the skin of my penis is pushed inside of me, and then I don't even know how they stitch it together. I'm not sure how that works. Is it like just a sock that stays inside your body? I don't know. But I don't like the idea of it. But this was sort of this was where a lot of this the exploration started, you might say. It was like there's these woods out here of identity that I have to go walk through and find out who I am. And it has something to do with being a woman. And so when I started HRT, that was the whole idea. It wasn't like, it was like I said, I wasn't like full steam ahead. I'm on track to being a woman. It was more like, well, I know wearing women's clothes makes me feel better, and putting on a wig and makeup makes me feel better. So maybe this will help me feel better too. And it's really difficult after a year to say whether it has made me feel better or not. And that is the number one reason I would say is that I don't really look like a woman. Like if I put the wig on, I kind of do, but if I take the wig off, I don't really look like a woman, And even my body, like I have breasts. These are my breasts from HRT. I am wearing a bra, so that there's a little bit extra pad there, but so yeah, after a year, I don't really look like a woman, which is kind of what I expected. And so I look something like if I were to actually try to have a sex life, unless I want to wear a wig during sex, then I don't see myself really as something very sexy. And there are times when I think I might be better off with a man's body, because at least then I might feel sexy. At least if I know I said before that I didn't really feel attractive as a man, but I don't feel that much more attractive now having the body of what looks like just an old man whose body is starting to sag. Basically, that's what I look like, is just a soft man with an extreme case of gynecomastia. I know I showed you my boobs, but if I were to take off my bra on the shirt, you'd see like this just, it's like a large man boob basically. And so that was one of the things where I was kind of like, I do like having breasts. I do like it when I see them, but at the same time, they're not. I don't feel like they are my salvation, if that makes sense. I don't feel like they are going to rescue me from whatever it is. So that was when I got to the 1 year point. That was largely what I was thinking. I've been on hormones for a year now. They say it takes about 2 years to get like the full transformation, and I don't know like how much of that transformation should have taken place after 1 year. Like I don't know if I'm 50% of the way there, 80% of the way there, and now I only have like 20% more to go, or 80% more to go. I don't know. But that was where a lot of the issue was. No, I don't. As far as like having breasts, I don't think that could be a problem if I decided to quit the hormones and I were stuck with these breasts for the rest of my life. That could be kind of a problem, because it is a source of anxiety when I go out in public. But I also feel like that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the more I do it, the more I feel like I don't worry what people think about me. So this is actually one of the benefits of this. The pluses of me doing this is that I am far less concerned with what people think about me. But it is still difficult, especially as my breasts get larger, right? I bought a sweater the other day at Goodwill. I went there to buy a beige sweater, and I found one. It was a hoodie sweater. And I put it on, and my breasts looked huge in it. I mean, maybe not huge for a woman, but certainly huge for me. And I looked at myself and I thought, I don't know if I can go out in public with these. But I have gone out. I mean, for the last year, I've had breasts for probably at least 6 months. I've had breasts that were noticeable, and been going out in public with them, and for the most part, I've had no problem. But it is a little bit anxiety inducing, especially when I don't, like I said, I don't look like a woman. So, I look like a man with boobs. I don't wear the wig in public. I do wear it for the videos, because in the videos it doesn't look that bad. But if you were to see this thing, see, it looks like, well, that's not a good. Anyways, the wig looks like trash. So, I don't know. That's another thing too, though, is like I'm a little bit scared just of that. I do wear eyeliner out in public, and I do wear stuff like this. I've worn shirts like this out in public. But to do like a whole get up with the wig and everything, I'm a little bit scared of that still, even though I've done it before. And that's partly just because of where I live, because years ago when I first started going out in public in women's clothing, I did have problems here with like getting arrested and people yelling things at me as they were driving down the street, or even past, like walking by me on the street. And so I'm a little bit anxious about that. So that could be part of the hesitation, but the big, I would say the big, like if I were going to stop HRT, it would be because what it's done to my sex drive. So there is this kind of, I don't know what to call it, but one of the things that I discovered through HRT was that the more feminine I feel, the greater my capacity of sexual arousal. That I get more aroused by seeing myself as a woman, or feeling like a woman, like just seeing myself in my head as a woman. Even having a penis. So like if I masturbate, and but I can kind of get to the point where in my head I'm seeing myself as a sexy woman, and my penis is like an inverted vagina, then I get like the most aroused I've ever been. And that's when I start thinking all those times I was having sex with women and I kind of felt like something was off, or I was just not quite satisfied. I felt like I found out the reason, right? But at the same time, my sex drive is kind of down here where it used to be up here. And I start thinking maybe I'd be better off with the higher sex drive and just learning how to see myself as a woman in my head, and not doing all the hormones and stuff. And so if I were to stop, I think that would be the main reason. The kind of the social anxiety, being the man with boobs in public and that sort of thing, that is a, you might call that a force pushing me to stop, but I wouldn't know if that would be a reason enough by itself to stop. But what would be reason by itself enough to stop is the sex drive, the loss in sex drive. Feeling like I see that I'm more aroused than I've ever been when I see myself as a woman, but thinking that having my male sex drive back, that I could have an even greater sexual experience. That's a little bit where I'm at the moment, kind of wavering, you might say, but I'm not totally convinced of that either, and that's partly because of things like having breasts. You know, like sometimes if I fondle my own breast, that makes me more aroused, because it makes me feel more like a woman. You know. So yeah, I would say that I am more certain than ever that I am some kind of trans. That I'm not. I may not be the kind of trans that needs a vagina to be happy. I don't know. But I am some kind of trans, and I say that because of the sex thing. That I need to feel like a woman to feel sexually aroused, or to have the highest potential of sexual arousal that I can have. Not because it wasn't just my relationship with women, the sex with women, but even just masturbating. Like masturbating when I was, growing up, a teenager, 20 years old, I had the same feeling. It was this feeling that something's not quite right. I'm not doing something right. And that started to change within just in the last few months of HRT. That I started, when I masturbate, I started to have this feeling that now I'm finally doing it right. And so as far as taking HRT as a way to explore myself, I don't really regret that. I don't have any regrets about that. And I don't, when I say that I don't have regrets, I don't mean that I'm not going to stop. But I certainly think that doing this was, at least going in this direction, was helpful. If I could do it over again, if I do have any regrets, I would say it was that I didn't start this soon enough. I knew when I was in my late teens, early 20s, that there was this big question mark on my gender. I knew that was something that I was kind of a sore point for me. Like I said, I kind of didn't quite feel like a real man and that kind of thing, but I didn't know if that was just weak or what. But if I'd been emasculated from, having a mother who didn't like men and then who threw me away like I was a piece of garbage, possibly because I was male. I'm losing steam here, folks. 31 minutes. Let's see. But yeah, my regret, my big regret, was that I didn't at least start the exploration sooner. I did, when I was in college, I did buy a skirt. And I bought it kind of as this thing to myself, like a gift to myself. I didn't wear it like in public or even like around the house or anything. I bought it basically as like a gift to myself, as like this kind of thing, like it's okay to be effeminate. It's okay to have a girly side. Of course, I didn't believe it, or I would have worn the skirt probably more often. But I do wish that I had started this like when I was in my 20s. Like when I'd gone to college at 18 years old, and I was away from my family, if I had started exploring my gender then, my life would probably be in a totally different place. Right now I'm living in a bus that I paid $3,000 for because I can't afford a house. I can't afford to rent an apartment. And that's because my life has just been this kind of, like I said, it's just been a kind of torture. Things like going to work have been like, almost like enough to want me to check myself into a mental hospital. So, yeah, that is my big regret. What I think though is that if I could go back in time, one of the reasons that I started the hormones was that I'm 46 years old now, and I kind of felt like if I were doing this in my 20s, what I would have done was I would have just experimented more with things like the wig, and I might not have even needed a wig in my 20s because I still had a full head of hair. But back then, I think that's what I would have done, was I would have just done just the cross-dressing thing, had just the wig or the long hair and makeup at least, and women's clothing, and just played around with that for a while. And that might have been enough to get me to realize kind of where I needed to be mentally to make relationships possible and that sort of thing. I guess if it's not obvious, I don't have any healthy I don't have any healthy relationships with people. I don't have any. The longest romantic relationship that I've had is about 4 years. And that by itself almost put me into a mental hospital. I mean, because that was just it is very strange to feel like you love somebody, but some part of you is like almost dying to get away from them, because there is this kind of, it's almost like being with them made me further from myself than I was before the relationship. That's what I felt like. I felt like that relationship was pulling me away from myself, even though I loved the woman that I was with. I wasn't really in love with her, but I did feel like there was this kind of mutual kind of like, you know, like we really do love each other. And but it was just as an example of this kind of like it's not okay to be me sort of thing that I went through. Was once I told her we were laying in bed together. I was laying on my stomach and she laid down on my back, and I kind of stuck my butt up, kind of like, you know, I was her girlfriend, right? And I said to her, I wish you had a penis so that you could fuck me with it. And she said, that's disgusting. Don't ever tell me that again. And that was, you might call that an invalidation of who I am. That it was not until the last few months, through taking hormones, seeing myself as a woman in my head when I masturbate, even watching lesbian porn, that I started to revisit those old experiences with her and started to realize, yeah, that really was what I wanted. I really did want a girl who could, you know, I could be in this relationship with as a girl. uh, I was watching this lesbian porn thing the other day, and I was watching these two girls together, and I was like, God, I wish I could have had that with her. Uh, but that's one of the reasons why I wish I had started this sooner. Because I'm not going to say that that relationship would have, I would have still been in that relationship. I probably wouldn't have been, because what I feel like is that it wouldn't have been enough to satisfy my desire for experience. There's another thing that I told her was that eventually I'm going to try having sex with a man. And she said, not while you're with me, you're not, because I consider that to be cheating. And so, probably not surprising, we broke up. But, yeah. But yeah, I think I would have just kind of done it without the hormones for a while. And then if I felt like, yeah, you know what, I really do want to have breasts, I think having breasts would be preferable to having this heightened sex drive, the optimal sex drive. Just for that experience, that if I'm going to be a lesbian, you know, then having breasts might be helpful. It might make the experience more fulfilling and that sort of thing. This is where I'm still a little bit not clear, because as far as changing my body, if you think about it, it's not just for me, right? It's also for my sexual partner, right? Whoever I have sex with. If I, you know, if my, like, I might grow breasts and feel like, well, I feel better about myself now, but it might also change the way my partner feels about me too. And perhaps that might be a key ingredient in us having the kind of the sex that you find most fulfilling. So this is where I'm a little bit still unclear, and one of the reasons why I wish I had started this much sooner. So, like I said, I'm 46 now. If I had started this in my 20s, it would not surprise me if I had started HRT at some point. But what I would like is to not be in this rush that I'm in, being 46 years old and feeling like, you know, I'm old enough to be a grandfather or grandmother, depending on how you look at it, and I don't want to be in my 60s when I finally get to this place where, well, now I can be a sexual creature and kind of go out and have fulfilling sex and this sort of thing. You know, I would like to get to that point sooner rather than later. because that has been one of the grievances in my life, is this kind of unfulfilling sex life. So, it is a little bit sad. It is a little bit. I do feel almost like God is a sadist. That I need to feel like a woman to be totally sexually aroused, but I can't have the same sex drive that I had as a man, where I wasn't. It's like I can be a man and have this high sex drive, but I can't feel good about myself. Or I can be a woman and have this low sex drive, but feel good about myself. It's like, God, what were you doing? Like, this is one of those kind of this is why I'm in this kind of tug of war in my brain. Like I said, if I were going to stop, it would be for that reason. It would be because I discovered that, yeah, I can be a woman in my head. I don't need to be a woman in my body. I can just be a woman mentally and have the best sex I've ever had. I don't know. So, I feel like I'm done. I feel like I ran out of steam a while back, and I'm just dragging it out. But hopefully, I have said everything that I think a person would want to know if they were thinking about hormones, or wanted just to hear my perspective on taking hormones as a way of exploring myself. Probably I'm going to masturbate right here in a few minutes. Just to see how it goes again, because this has just been something that I discovered recently, but I'm not convinced yet. I'm still kind of like wanting to prove to myself that, yeah, being a woman is the way for me to have the best erections I've ever had. So, or at least the best experience. I don't know. My penis did get smaller from HRT, so I can't say that I'm having the best erections, but they do feel better. Does that make sense? In my hand, anyways. Oh, me. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I think I'll stop right there. And if I need to change anything, I might just make the whole thing over again.